Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short Story 583, The Great Sandwich Disaster, Intermediate. Mr. Colin Briggs was not a man who usually took risks. He lived in a small flat, worked in the local library, and ate the same lunch every single day, a cheese sandwich, a packet of crisps, and a banana. But one Monday morning, something inside Colin snapped. He decided to live dangerously. He would try a new sandwich filling. In the café near his work, he stood in front of the counter, studying the chalkboard menu. "Can I help you?" asked Sandra, the café owner. "Yes," Colin said, feeling bold. "I'll have the Spicy Mega Chicken Deluxe." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" "It's very powerful." "I'm sure," Colin said bravely, although his stomach made a nervous noise. When he sat down with his sandwich, he noticed it was enormous. It was stuffed with chicken, jalapeños, chili sauce, and something bright red that looked suspiciously like lava. Colin took a bite. His mouth immediately caught fire. His eyes watered, his face turned red, and he began making noises like a steam train. Sandra appeared with a glass of milk. "Told you it was powerful," she said. After finishing, because Colin was too polite to leave food, he returned to work. But his troubles weren't over. As he sat at the library desk, he felt a deep rumble in his stomach. He tried to ignore it. 10 minutes later, the rumble became a roar. Colin jumped up, knocking over a pile of books. Just stretching, he told the other librarian, who looked suspicious. He hurried to the staff toilet. Unfortunately, it was occupied. The next 5 minutes were a blur of polite coughing, pacing, and quiet desperation. When the door finally opened, Colin dashed inside. Unfortunately again, he forgot to check the toilet paper first. "No," he whispered dramatically. Colin's mind raced. He spotted a stack of unused library leaflets on the windowsill. They were advertising Quiet Reading Week. Well, they wouldn't be quiet for long. When he finally returned to his desk, pale but alive, he hoped his ordeal was over. But as he sat down, a little leaflet fluttered from his pocket onto the floor. A customer picked it up, sniffed, and frowned. "Excuse me," the man said to Colin. "This leaflet smells odd." Colin laughed nervously. Probably the new ink. Very experimental." The man nodded slowly and walked away, clearly unconvinced. From that day on, Colin returned to his cheese sandwich, crisps, and banana. Whenever he walked past the cafe, he avoided eye contact with Sandra. She, in turn, would simply smile knowingly. And somewhere in the library, under a stack of dusty books, there is still a leaflet from Quiet Reading Week with a story of its own. Vocabulary notes. Snap, verb, to suddenly lose self-control or change behavior, often after being calm or predictable for a long time. From the story, but one Monday morning, something inside Colin snapped. This means Colin suddenly decided to change his usual safe habits. Similar words, phrases, lose it, break, crack, have a sudden change, reach a breaking point. Example, after days of bad weather, Sarah snapped and booked a holiday in Spain. Raise an eyebrow, idiom, to show surprise, doubt, or mild disapproval, often without speaking. From the story, Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" "It's very powerful." Sandra used this gesture to express her disbelief about Colin's choice. Similar expressions, look skeptical, give a questioning look, glance doubtfully. Example, When I told my teacher I'd done the 1,000-word essay in 10 minutes, she raised an eyebrow. Enormous, adjective, extremely large in size, amount, or degree. From the story, he noticed it was enormous. Colin's sandwich was much bigger than he expected. Similar words: huge, massive, gigantic, gigantic, humongous. Example: the dog brought in an enormous stick that barely fit through the door. Ordeal, noun, a very unpleasant and difficult experience. From the story, he hoped his ordeal was over. Here it refers to Colin's uncomfortable and embarrassing situation after eating the spicy sandwich. Similar words: trial, nightmare, hardship, suffering. Example: getting caught in a thunderstorm without an umbrella was an ordeal. Flutter, verb, to move quickly and lightly, often up and down or side to side. From the story, a little leaflet fluttered from his pocket onto the floor. The leaflet moved in a light, quick motion as it fell. Similar words: float, drift, flicker, flap. Example: a butterfly fluttered past my face and landed on a flower. Knowingly, adverb, in a way that shows you know something secret or have understanding of the situation. From the story, she, in turn, would simply smile knowingly. Sandra's smile showed she remembered what had happened to Colin. Similar words, phrases: with awareness, meaningfully, with understanding, shrewdly. Example: when I mentioned chocolate cake, my friend smiled knowingly she'd already baked one for my birthday. Story written by ChatGPT 5 AI. Image created by Imagio AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. CC Music, drifting at 432 Hz, unicorn heads.
All right, welcome back. Today we've got a really fun one for you. It's a hilarious and maybe a little bit of a cautionary tale about a man, a sandwich, and one single terrible decision. You know that feeling, right? When you order something for lunch and you instantly regret it? Like the second it hits your tongue, you're just like, oh no, what have I done? We've all been there. Well, the story we're diving into today, it takes that feeling and dials it up to 11.
So let's set the scene. Our story kicks off with a guy whose entire life is, well, let's just say it's the dictionary definition of predictable. So let me introduce you to Mr. Colin Briggs. He lives in a small flat, works at the local library, and he's a man who absolutely thrives on order, quiet, and routine. His life is just this steady, totally unchanging rhythm, especially when it comes to his lunch.
So on one side, you've got his usual. The cheese sandwich, crisps, a banana. It's safe, it's reliable. Let's be honest, it's kind of boring. But then, something happens. A little spark of rebellion ignites. He makes a decision to just live dangerously for a day. And yeah, this is the exact moment everything changes for him. After years and years of the same old cheese sandwich on one otherwise totally normal Monday morning, the routine just becomes too much. Something inside of him just, well, it breaks.
Which brings us to our very first key word here, snap. It's that perfect word for when you suddenly lose control or your behavior just flips, you know? Especially after being super calm and predictable for a long time. And that's exactly what happened to Colin. After all those years of predictable lunches, he just snapped.
And so this snap, it leads him straight out of the quiet library and into the local cafe. And this is where he makes the choice that's going to completely define his day. The choice to order the dangerous sandwich.
I mean, you can almost hear the misplaced confidence in his voice, right? He's not just ordering lunch. Oh no, he is making a statement. He's not Mr. Cheese Sandwich anymore. He's Colin Briggs, adventurer.
But here's the thing. While Colin's feeling all bold and adventurous, the cafe owner Sandra, who, by the way, knows her customers and more importantly knows her sandwiches, she's a little skeptical. Her reaction is super subtle, but man, it says it all.
And Sandra's reaction? It gives us this fantastic idiom, to raise an eyebrow. You know exactly what that means, right? It's that universal, nonverbal way of saying, are you sure about that? It's this quiet but really powerful way to show you're surprised or you have some serious doubts.
And she even gives him a verbal warning. She tells him it's very powerful, which, let's be real, is probably the understatement of the century. It's this gentle little warning before the storm. But Colin? Nope. He's full of this newfound courage, and he just blows right past it. So, the sandwich arrives. And wow. Just wow. This thing is not just a sandwich, it's a monument to bad life choices. It's absolutely stuffed with chicken, more jalapeños than you can count, and a sauce that looks, well, it looks suspiciously like actual lava. Which brings us to our next word, enormous. And honestly, that is the perfect word for this sandwich. We're not just talking big here. This thing is gigantic. It's massive. It's a kind of sandwich that can barely even fit on the plate. Okay, so now we get to the consequences. Colin takes his very first bite, and his whole day just immediately turns into what you can only describe as a fiery ordeal. And the effects are immediate, and, let's face it, pretty comical. His mouth feels like it's literally on fire. His eyes are watering like crazy, his face is bright red, and he's making these noises like an old steam train. Yeah, his little adventure has officially turned on him. So, after somehow, and I mean somehow, finishing the entire sandwich because, he's just too polite to waste it, Colin retreats back to the safety of the library. He's thinking, okay, the worst is over. Oh, how wrong he was. So wrong. And this entire situation is the absolute definition of our next word, an ordeal. An ordeal isn't just a small problem or an inconvenience. No, it's a really, really unpleasant and difficult experience. And for poor Colin, it was just getting started. So his problems are just escalating, right? He gets back to his desk and his stomach lets out this huge roar. He makes a mad dash for the staff toilet, but it's occupied. Of course it is. So after this agonizing wait, pacing back and forth, he finally gets in, only to discover the ultimate horror. No toilet paper. And you can just imagine this quiet, desperate cry of, no. That right there, that is the sound of pure, whispered panic. It's the absolute peak of his miserable ordeal. And this disaster leads us to the aftermath, the falling action of our little story, an event we can only call the leaflet incident. So he thinks he's survived the worst of it, he's back at his desk, probably looking a little pale, but he's alive. But just as he sits down, a single, tiny, incriminating piece of evidence makes a break for it. And this brings us to our next word, flutter. See, the leaflet doesn't just fall with a thud, it flutters. It's this light, quick, almost delicate movement, drifting back and forth as it floats to the floor, where, of course, a customer immediately picks it up. And that's it. Colin's grand adventure is officially over. From that day on, it's right back to the simple, safe cheese sandwiches. And as for Sandra back at the cafe, well, she never says a word. She just smiles.
Which perfectly captures our final word for today, knowingly. Sandra's smile isn't just a friendly hello smile. She smiles knowingly. It's a look that shows she's in on the secret. It says, oh yeah, I know what you did. I remember the Spicy Mega Chicken Deluxe. It's their own little shared, unspoken secret. So what are the big takeaways from Colin's awful, spicy, terrible day? Let's do a quick recap of the lessons we can learn from this great sandwich disaster. All right, so here's a quick look back at the 6 key words and phrases we picked up today. We started with Colin snapping, saw Sandra raise an eyebrow at that enormous sandwich, followed Colin through his ordeal where a leaflet fluttered to the ground, and ended with Sandra's knowing smile. Each one really helped bring this hilarious story to life. If you want to take a second, feel free to pause here and just review them. And this whole thing leads to a really interesting final question. Colin, he went right back to his safe, quiet, predictable life. But for just one day, he lived in adventure. I mean, sure, it was a total ordeal, no doubt about it. But it also gave him one heck of a story to tell.
So it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's better in the end? A quiet life or a life with a good story? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.